Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in. I've been doing some work on my international shelf, which is the one you see there with Java in the middle. These are all figures that were made for markets outside of the United States. So when Kenner wanted to ship figures around the world, they couldn't just ship them themselves. They had to have a toy company from that country produce the figures and sell them. So that's what this shelf is dedicated to. So you have Lili Ledy from Mexico, PBP and PAC from Spain, Takara from Japan, Popey from Japan, Meccano from France, and it goes on. So I'm going to go over some of the changes I made. We're going to go ahead and zoom in. I did get some stands that tell you what company made them. So there's Lili Ledy, PAC, Ledy, PBP. Let me open up the door here. Go over some of these card backs first. That Luke is a pallet toy. You can see the pallet toy symbol right down there. And that was the United Kingdom company that had the license to release the figures in the UK, and they also distributed them throughout Europe too. That is a Meccano from France, and you can see that's a square card. Those are really cool. That is a pallet toy Boba Fett. That is a Lili Ledy Gamorrean guard that was made for the US market, but it was made in Mexico and using a Mexican Gamorrean guard. That is relatively new to my collection. That's Top Toys Argentina, Darth Vader. And Top Toys, I'll show you some of their figures. They're the only figures that don't have any peg holes in the feet because Top Toys, instead of using Kenner molds, they just took the Kenner figures and made molds from the figures. So the figures are a little smaller. And that's a Clipper from Belgium, that Snow Trooper. That's what you call a tri-logo card with Wicket there. That was kind of just sent out to a lot of European countries. There's another Meccano from France on that Gamorrean guard. Down below I have a few advertisements. There's a Lili Ledy catalog, and kind of can see underneath there, that one is Meccano from France. I'll take you around the other side. We have here, this card back is a Luke Skywalker. That's Kenner Canada. So you can see it has some French on there too. This card is a Darth Vader Empire Strikes Back. That's General Mills, Germany. And there's a United Kingdom tri-logo card with the bubble still attached. I love that, that price tag on there. My UK friends, how do you say that? £1.59? Is that how you say it? We would say $1.59. And that is a Sukuda from Japan, Bib Fortuna. It's a regular kind of card. On the back, it has a Japanese sticker. It was sold in Japan. And a tri-logo Gamorrean guard, along with the Lili Ledy Chief Chirpa. So figure-wise, in the front row, there you see my different Darth Vaders, and there is no Takara. I'm sorry, this is Top Toys Argentina, and can't get any Top Toys or Takara or Popey stickers. But otherwise, for the stands, this is just a little sticker that goes on the stand. So, but there's some different Darth Vaders. Again, the C-3PO and R2-D2 right there are Takara from Japan. That's the alternate sculpt C-3PO. And PAC, Glasslight from Brazil, PAC with Spain, Meccano France. There's Popey from Japan. I love that box. That's a box that the figures came in. Pallet Toy, that was a UK, the tri-logo Luke Skywalker. And there's some of the others. Like I said, Glasslight was from Brazil. And here, a lot of Lili Ledy figures. I'm a big sucker for Ledy figures. Back here, there's a made in Mexico Lili Ledy Gamorrean guard bagged. Up here is an interesting bagged figure. It's got the Pallet Toy Parker Bradgate, which I had never heard of until I saw this bagged figure. But apparently it's not easy to find these. There's some out there. This is the only one I've ever seen for sale, but some Facebook groups, some guys have some of these. And that's a Lili Ledy Overstock Gamorrean guard leg and a non-sonic welded Gamorrean guard, which was done, it's Overstock pieces, so I could take that apart. And we'll just stay on this side here. Again, we went over some of the Ledy figures. These are three of my favorites. We have the Lili Ledy Leia Besbin, Palatoy, and then Pac, and you can see how different they look from each other. So you have Mexico, the UK, and Spain. That's a Mexican Boba Fett. That's a French Boba Fett. And let me open up the door over here. See Jabba and Salacious Crumb are Lily Letty. Here's some more Letty Overstock figures. You know, that one's just a factory error. He has 2 left legs. But when Letty closed their doors, they had some Overstock pieces, and they just let the employees put them together. So they made these Frankenstein figures. Down here, there's a really cool variant on Walrus Man, the Meccano. It's got that mint green look to him. The rest of those guys are PBP. Different eye directions for the PBP hammerheads. And some of my favorites are those PBP Boba Fetts. And over here we have some more Lettys. Here we have a Letty and PBP Lando. You can see the difference with those. That's another Top Toys Argentina figure. Don't have a sticker for those. And some more Lettys. So I'm going to pull out my top 10 favorite figures out of here and go into a little more detail with them and show them to you. So I'll be right back. So I pulled 10 figures out that I wanted to go into more detail on. These are 10 of my favorite. There might be a couple more that I wish I could have put in, but I just wanted to keep it at 10 for now. But I'm going to go over each one of these, and I'm going to show you what it looks like next to its Kenner USA counterpart and show you what makes it so different. So we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so we'll go over Greedo here. And the reason I brought 3 is because they're kind of related. It started out, this mold here was made in Hong Kong by the Smile Factory. The only Hong Kong factory that made any of the Cantina creatures was the Smile Factory. Cater and Unitoys didn't make any. And there's a country of origin. Pretty much green boots and hands. So that mold ended up going to Spain, where they made this PBP version. You can see how blue the stripes on the arms and the boots are. And PBP in Spain, they covered up the Hong Kong, which caused that scar in the country of origin stamp, leaving it blank. So this mold was sent to PBP, where that figure was made, and later on that mold was sent back to the Smile Factory, where they produced this figure later on in the run. And there you can see it still doesn't have a COO, but Smile smoothed it out a little bit more, so there wasn't such an ugly scar. They painted it green again. And so the Greedo is cool for me. Mainly those blue boots look really awesome. Let me get a better light on it there. And they didn't make it for a really long time. They didn't make, this one's actually harder to find. The US Smile no COO Cantina creatures. That includes Walrus Man, Snaggletooth, and Hammerhead. The US no country of origin versions are much harder to find than the PBPs in Spain. I was fortunate enough to find that Greedo wasn't expensive, and I have a Walrus Man also, but I've had a hard time finding Hammerhead and Snaggletooth. But there's Greedo, PBP made in Spain. By that time, Spain was no longer importing the parts. They were doing injection molding themselves. That's why there's no country of origin. So this is an example of one that was made in Spain from a mold that came from Hong Kong, and then the mold was sent back to Hong Kong to make that third one on the right. So that's Greedo, PBP, made in Spain. All right, so we're going to go over the Palatoy Princess Leia Besbin gown, often called the geisha face or the pale face, and you can see why. Really pale plastic used for the face, and it looks awesome. The makeup is done differently. You know, you can see the face paint is done differently. Get a little closer. And the Kenner one on the left here is the same factory. These were both made with Unitoy molds. Now, I'll show you the country of origin stamp and these in a second, but the one on the right has the country of origin stamp was removed from the mold, which probably means it was not made in Hong Kong. It was produced by Palitoy, but I know Palitoy was not doing any injection molding there. So this figure was made for them to use in the European market. It was not released in the US. It was only released on Tri-Logo cards, but it was made using the Unitoy mold, which is what this US version is here. So you can see the hands. That gooey stuff there is a museum putty holding her gun in place. The capes are different. This cape here is, listen, you can kind of hear it's a rough cape there, and that one's smooth. That one's got a really rough, zippy feeling to it. They call that the textured cape. Not common. It is a Unitoy. You can even see the lines in it compared to the one on the right there. So that US Unitoy cape is pretty rare. They're not super expensive, but they're pretty rare. I got lucky. I just got this figure recently for like $12, and I got lucky with that cape. So you can see the differences. You can see why she's called Geisha, and I'll show you the country of origin stamps. Okay, so there's a better view here of the back and the country of origin stamps. Now, the Kenner one says Hong Kong, but you can see there's a little bit of a short pour. The probably not enough plastic got injected into the mold. Maybe the mold was wearing out too, but it's not very clear. Sometimes the molds would start wearing out and the lettering wouldn't look so sharp. And you can see here, the UK version has no country of origin, so they covered it up in the mold. So you can see very different hair colors too. So it's one of my favorite variants, is that Geisha Leia. Very rare. You can find them occasionally, but if you're on the hunt for one, they're hard to find. But they are out there occasionally on eBay or Facebook. But one of the harder variants to find for sure. So that's the Palitoy Geisha Leia. All right, next up we have another Princess Leia Bespin gown. This one is the PAC made in Spain on the right there. And at this time, you know, PAC was a company called PBP, and PAC was one of the P's. I forget what the other P and B stood for, but it was three companies that came together to make items for Star Wars. And PAC made the toys. The other two companies made like electronics and books and board games and that. So in the early days when PAC was making figures during the Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back era, they were just importing the parts from the Asian factories. In this case, this PAC figure had parts made in the Cater factory in Hong Kong. And then they were imported to Spain, where Spain put them together and painted them. So you won't be able to tell a PAC just by the country of origin stamp, because it was the same pieces that were sent to the US. But you can tell by the paint job. And it's common too with PAC figures to have some melt marks on them. These figures were assembled using a technology called sonic welding that basically just vibrated the plastic and melded it together. And it created heat. And good equipment would stop the heat from leaving melt marks on the plastic. But PAC did not have very good technology at the time. So this particular PAC figure does not have any melt marks that I could find, but I do have other PAC figures with a lot of melt marks. Us collectors really like those though. So let's get a little bit closer, and let me pull her hands out for you. And here you see, one way you can tell you have a PAC is those white hands and white feet compared to the more flesh tone on the Kenner. And also PAC, and it's kind of hard to tell with this lighting, but there's a little bit of a reddish tint to her hair that very different than what the brown Kenner hair looks like. So you can see the differences in the hair. In this case too, this Cater factory variant from Kenner has the neck part painted. This one they just went with a turtleneck look. And I'm going to take the capes off and show you the difference, show you what the COOs look like. There you can see how different the faces look. They're different plastic too, but the factories themselves, each factory had a lot of different variants, and they used different plastics throughout the years. So let's take a look at the country of origin stamps. Okay, and there you have a look, and you can see they're pretty much almost the same. I think there's slight differences. There's a few different country of origin and date stamps for Cater, but the one on the right is the PAC, one on the left is the Kenner. And you can see it is different plastics that were used. The POC one has a shinier plastic, but that same plastic also would have been sent to some of the variants in the US too. So that wouldn't be a way to tell that it was POC. And you can see this one has the glossier arms and legs and just a matte torso, where this one's glossy all the way around. And then you look at the hair. The paint on the hair is very different. So that's the POC Princess Leia Bespin gown. Just got that one recently. Very cool variant. All right, next up we have the Toll Toys Darth Vader, the one on the right there. And with him, Toll Toys was the company in Australia that had the license to release figures for Australia and New Zealand. For the most part, they just imported the regular Kenner figures and put them on Toll Toys packaging. But they are credited with having 2 exclusive figures that were made just for them. This Darth Vader, and there's also a vinyl Cape Jabba. And there's a little bit of debate. Some people think this Toll Toys one was released in the US too. I've seen no evidence of that, but most people agree that if you lived in Australia and you got a Darth Vader, this is the one that you got. The difference is the Toll Toys, one of the ways you can tell is it just says Taiwan on the back. It doesn't say made in. I put the Kenner counterpart there on the left of the screen. This guy is Kenner. This was made for the US market, and it says made in Taiwan on the back. Now I'm going to bring you in and show you some close-up of the face, and you can see, we'll go over here, look at the Kenner one. You know, nice detail, nice triangle mouth. You know, look at the end pieces of the cheeks there. And then you come over here and look how crude this one is. The cheek tubes are really bulbous, especially on his left cheek. Very crude looking plastic, a lot of flashing there on the side. That's, if you look down the seam on the helmet, you can see a lot of plastic sticking out. They call that flashing. And even down here, that's what the hilt should look like on the lightsaber. And then you look at this one, and you can see it's been, you know, it has some extra plastic hanging off that cracked a little bit. And that's not playwear or damage. That's just the way it was made at the factory. The lightsaber is Taiwan. Even the made in Taiwan lightsabers have that rounded tip. This is not a made in Taiwan saber, but it is a genuine Kenner saber. So very big differences. A completely different mold than the Kenner version. And it says Taiwan on the back instead of made in Taiwan. I'll take the capes off and I'll show you what the back looks like. All right, there's a look at the back. You can see the Kenner one, GMFGI made 1977, made in Taiwan, and then the Toll Toys just says Taiwan. They're very hard to find. They are out there, but they are rare. So if you get a chance to buy one, if you can afford it, do it. It's a good investment piece. They don't come up often. Very hard to find. And there's the look at the back. Just a completely different mold, the whole head and body. So one of my favorite variants and one of the harder to find ones. I do have a video of some of my top 10. I think it's a top 10 variants that would be hardest to replace. And this Toll Toys Darth Vader is one of them. So Toll Toys Australia, New Zealand, Darth Vader. All right, so next we have Walrus Man, the Meccano version. And Meccano was the French company that made the figures for France. They did not do the injection molding in France. They had them made somewhere in Asia using Kenner molds. Again, Smile Factory was the only factory in Hong Kong that made any of the Cantina creatures, which was Walrus Man here, Greedo, Hammerhead, and Snaggletooth. So you can see big differences with the French version. Get a little closer. They call them the mint green one because of that awesome paint on the head. It's just such a cool variant. It really sticks out in my display too. Same with the hands. You can see the mint green hands compared to the Kenner one on the right there. And very different paint job. These both have pink tusks. Most Walrus men, whether they're Kenner or whatever, have white tusks. And there you can see the country of origin stamps. This one is very smoothed out. This is the Meccano. It's a lot more smooth actually than the Kenner version. And the Kenner version has a little bit more matted boots, where this one has glossier plastic all the way around. So the Meccano If you look at the plastic, it has a glossy plastic compared to what the Kenner has there on the right with a matte look to it. But they call this the mint green Walrus Man. One of my favorite variants that I have, and this one's in beautiful condition too. And so that's Walrus Man Meccano from France. All right, next is Boba Fett PBP, and I think this is just one of the best variants ever. You can see the difference. I don't even need to say anything about the plastic or anything. It just pops. That one on the right is almost a grayish plastic compared to the more blue Kenner version. The paint on the belt, the paint on the arms and legs there. You can see this one, for instance, there's no paint. They call this the unpainted knee right there compared to Kenner has a painted knee. Now I do have, I'm going to show you real quick, zoom over here. There's some more different versions of the same PBP Boba Fett right there. The differences in these are some of them have the rocket painted, some don't, and some have the bottom of the knee. They call it painted knee or unpainted knee. Sometimes that's painted like the Kenner version here, and sometimes it's not. Take a look at the country of origin stamp. There you see it's just a scar right there on the right leg. That's a single scar. I have one that's a double scar where there's just a line in the middle right here, and it makes two scars instead of one. Whereas it would have actually just said, the mold originally said Hong Kong like this one. Boba Fett in Asia, Boba Fett was only made in one factory, that was Cater. Smile and Unitoy did not make a Boba Fett. And then in Spain, you know, PBP made them, what you're seeing here. Pac also made some, and I don't have a Pac Boba Fett, but they made some during the Pac era too. Lily Letty, Meccano, I have those. I picked the PBP because it looks so different, and if I put it in with my regular Boba Fetts, it just pops really, you know, you notice it as soon as you look at them. If you're not aware, the Kenner Boba Fett has tons of different variants. Just in the Hong Kong ones, this is a brown belt. They have dark brown, almost black belts, different shades of green. I have a one or two Boba Fett videos. You should scroll down and check them out, and it shows you the differences in all the Hong Kong Boba Fetts. But the PBP one to me is just one of the coolest variants you can find. And then there's variants of that. Like I said, I have 5 of them. There's a total of 6 that I'm aware of, combinations of the painted dart and unpainted knee and the double scar. And also there's a version of this that I have also with a light instead of the dark brown. It's got a light, almost yellowish color there. So again, no country of origin stamp. There's how the back looks. Give you an idea how different they are, different plastics, colors. I love the PBP Boba Fett, and I'm fortunate to have a few of them. All right, so I didn't really pull out anything to compare this Gamorrean Guard to. This is Lily Letty Overstock. Letty had their own unique molds. There was no Kenner version of this mold. This is unique to Lily Letty. That's, if you see that country of origin, there's no country of origin stamp. When you see that date stamp, you know you have a Letty. So what's interesting about this one though is I can gently pry it open, pry it apart, and you can see it just kind of falls apart. And this one was never sonic welded. This is Lily Letty Overstock, as you can see there. So that's just the pieces. And when Lily Letty closed their doors, they just let the employees have whatever overstock parts they wanted. So I have a few Frankenstein figures there that are made up of different figures. They made one figure out of them. This one, they kept all the parts, but they just snapped it together and never sonic welded it. They also never gave it its other arm, his left arm he never got. So that is the non-sonic welded Lily Letty Overstock Gamorrean Guard. So that's what the head looks like. And sometimes you'll see these without any paint too, you know, these Overstock ones. This one, I think everything is painted on it. And there's some kind of numbers in there. So these were, like I said earlier, these were put together in a system called sonic welding. where they just vibrated these together until they melted, the parts together. And this one, though, just never got welded. But it does snap together and it displays really nice. All right, and there it is all back together again. And again, that is a Lilly Leddy Gamorrean Guard. I have several of these too. I'm a Gamorrean Guard freak. And this one is Lilly Leddy Overstock, put together by an employee who had access to the pieces after they closed the business down. So Lilly Leddy Overstock Gamorrean Guard. All right, so maybe my favorite variants, maybe even in my whole collection, I'm not sure. Close to it. The one on the right, that is the Takara Alternate Sculpt C-3PO. And Takara had the license to release the figures in Japan during the Star Wars era for the first movie. A company called Popey had the license for Empire Strikes Back, and Sakuda had the license for Return of the Jedi. Unlike those two companies, Takara actually made some of their own figures. In the 3 3/4 inch line, which is this, they made a C-3PO, a Stormtrooper, and a Darth Vader. All of them say Japan for the country of origin stamp, and they're all completely different molds than anything else used in the rest of the world. The one on the left there that looks more silver, that's a standard Kenner figure released in the US. And what people like so much about this Japanese version is look at their faces. The Japanese version has a completely different head, different face. The whole body is actually a completely different sculpt. The Kenner ones, you can find nice gold ones. I have some really gold Kenner ones too. I picked a more of a silver one just to show you the contrast. But if you look at the face, completely different. And it's got a little bit more, I think, a little more of an anime Japanese style to him, just like their die-cast Darth Vader does, which I have videos of that too. I do have some videos of my other Japanese figures. So you look at the back, you can see the Kenner always used a rivet in the back. Lilly Leddy used a flathead screw. Takara used what here in the States we call it a Phillips screw. But that's what Takara used. And nice gold color. It's in nice condition too. And there's the money shot right there. Not only does it say Japan, but it also says 1978, which none of the other ones released in the States or anywhere else, the mold was made in 1977. So they made, for instance, this C-3PO for Kenner, they made him up until Empire Strikes Back. He was replaced by removable limb C-3PO. But the figures like Luke Skywalker and them that say 1977 on the back, they were still producing them in the 80s, but they were still using the 1977 mold. This completely different mold, Japan 1978. That's really cool. They only have 3 figures that say Japan on the back, and this is one of them. So that's the alternate sculpt C-3PO, and it's another one that just sticks out like a sore thumb in the collection. One of my all-time favorites. So this bag Dengar made the list. The figure itself is a Smile Factory, same type that was released in the US. But what's fascinating about this one is right there, Palette Toys. So this was made for the United Kingdom. I got this from a seller in New Zealand, but it's very rare to see that Parker Bradgate on there as well. Made in Hong Kong. He's got the weapon in there and everything. But as far as we know, only this Dengar has this packaging. 1 or 2 other figures have shown up from what somebody told me with this packaging, but they weren't sure that they were legit. This one's legit, it's sealed. But I was not aware that Palette Toy was partnered with Parker and Bradgate. I know that Parker released some stuff for Star Wars too. So this is interesting. A lot of people never seen it before. Some on Facebook had, and they gave me a little info on it, but very rare, very hard to find. And I was fortunate to pick this one up at a pretty reasonable price. But this is a sealed Palette Toy Parker Bradgate packaging that you just don't see very often. The rest of the figure, like I said, this is just a standard figure that they imported that would have been released in the United States too. They just imported it and put it in their packaging. But that Palette Toy Parker Bradgate, not hard to find, or not easy to find. And There's a couple of other collectors on Facebook that had them that was really cool, but very hard to find. And if you ever get a chance to get one, go for it. But this is Dengar Palitoy Parker Bradgate packaging. All right, and next we have Luke Skywalker Glasslight. Glasslight was the company in Brazil that had the license to make these, and they actually didn't produce these until around 1988. Kenner, nobody else was making Star Wars figures anymore, but they got the license and they got the molds, and they used the Kenner molds, and they made this really awesome zombie looking Luke. Is really pale. Let me show you the country of origin. This is a Cater Factory Luke released for the United States. The Glasslight one used the Cater Factory mold, and here's how you can tell. That little 3-line country of origin stamp there. And then you can see it again here. I actually have 2 of these. You can see the 1977 is a little centered above the bar there. That bar is where the Hong Kong would have been. So in the mold, they dug out the Hong Kong. So when they injected plastic into it, it filled it in and created that raised bar. Some of them have the 1977 centered like this one above the bar, and there's another one where the 77 is off higher up the leg. I have both of them. I just pulled out the nicer looking one of the 2. What's this one? Yeah, this one's centered too. So they used the Cater Factory mold, and they made this really awesome pale face, like I said, zombie looking Luke. Different paint in the eyes, not so much flesh colored. The hands are different paint, the legs. You know, Luke Skywalker over the years, every factory made a ton of different variants on the paint and everything. So it's easy to get into a rabbit hole collecting these Lukes. I have over 50 of them. But the Glasslight, made in Brazil around 1988. One of my all-time favorite variants too. I'm a big Luke Skywalker guy, and this is one of my favorite figures. So Glasslight, Brazil, Luke Skywalker. All right, so thanks for watching my little documentary on my international shelf, and got to show you a little background on some of my favorite variants here. And there's another look at it. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you'll go ahead and hit subscribe and check out my other videos. I have a lot of them on here, and you'll be hearing from me again soon. Thank you.